Hello and welcome to the Federal News Sense. I'm Srinivasan. India has slipped by a place in the Human Development Index or HDI for 2021 as compared to the previous year, according to the annual report released by UNDP or United Nations Development Programme on September 8. The index has ranked India at 132 of the 191 countries it had surveyed. This is for the second year in a row that India's ranking has dropped after growing steadily for 3 decades since 1990 when the measurements began for the first time. But before we have a closer look at the Indian situation, let's look at the global concerns raised by the report. The report opens ominously saying, and I quote, "We live in a world of worry," unquote, and goes on to say that three factors, COVID-19, Ukraine war, and ecological and societal changes have brought upon the world uncertainties in, I quote, ominously new forms. The report deals at length with the climate change and suggests that we have perhaps entered the Anthropocene epoch, which means we're in a period in Earth's history when human activities have begun to have a significant impact on the planet's climate and ecosystem. It further says that besides inequalities and societal changes, there is a trend of intense polarization around the world, which is adding to these uncertainties. Because of the above reasons, some countries have experienced setbacks for 2 years in a row. And what about the Indian situation? It is in line with the global trends where 90% of the countries have fallen behind in human development in the last 2 years. But that's not the complete story. The declining trend in Human Development Index for India precedes the pandemic. In 2018, India's HDI value was 0.645 as compared to 0.644 in 2017, which is a small growth. In 2019, the HDI value remained stagnant at 0.645 as in the previous year. In 2020 and 2021, it had dropped to 0.642 and 0.633 respectively. If we were to compare ourselves with two of our western neighbors, Pakistan and Afghanistan, we are better placed, but that's not saying much. Historically, since the beginning of the index in 1990, the two nations have lagged behind India. But before we dwell further, let's understand what HDI index is and why it is important. UNDP introduced the new index, Human Development Index or HDI, as a countermeasure of national income such as GDP. This index looked at countries through the prism of how developed their human resources were. HDI is a summary measure for assessing long-term progress in three basic dimensions of human development. They are a long and healthy life, access to knowledge, which means education, and decent standard of living. So it measures life expectancy at birth, expected years of schooling, and standard of living. The standard of living is calculated by measuring per capita gross national income or GNI. In short, health, education, and per capita income form part of the index. However, what should be clear here is that HDI index cannot replace the GDP as the measure of economic growth or otherwise of a country. The latest example is that of Sri Lanka. While the island nation is almost bankrupt and had to approach IMF and other multilateral and bilateral agencies for a bailout, it is ranked very high on HDI. It's actually above the global average. Of course, India's southern neighbor has HDI value of 0.800, far above India. Tiny Maldives, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia also figure high above the global averages. The Himalayan state of Nepal is below India, but the Bangladesh story is interesting. The eastern neighbor leveled India in 2019 and has crossed over to score a higher HDI value of 0.655 in 2020 and 0.661 in 2021. Now, if you were to look at China, which has the highest population in the world, with India trailing closely at the second position, the communist nation crossed the global average in 2015 and has a HDI value of 0.768 in 2021. China, like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, have actually grown during the pandemic years. Now, let's look at how within India various states figure on the HDI index. As per 2019 data, Kerala is at number one position. Besides, Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, and Himachal Pradesh, and the only large state among these that figures in the high human development category is Tamil Nadu. Maharashtra, Karnataka, Gujarat, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Arunachal Pradesh, among others, figure in the medium human development list. West Bengal, Rajasthan, Assam, Madhya Pradesh figure in the below national average states list, with Bihar and Uttar Pradesh being the bottommost one. Now, how should one read this politically? Tamil Nadu has been celebrating its high HDI ranking, saying that it is made possible because of its Dravidian model of development. Now, political rhetoric apart, what is undeniable is that Tamil Nadu has invested heavily in education and health over the years and has reaped the benefits. One example is its success in reducing absolute poverty numbers. In the 1960s, Tamil Nadu was almost at par with Uttar Pradesh in terms of absolute poverty, but the state has now reduced the number of poor substantially and is a high-performing state. Two professors of MIDS, or Madras Institute of Developmental Studies, A. Kalayarasan and M. Vijayabhaskar, have demonstrated with the help of data how Tamil Nadu and its political culture has enabled inclusive growth. Interestingly, while states like Maharashtra and Gujarat were high on economic growth, they were lagging in HDI values. As opposed to this, Tamil Nadu has come tops both in terms of economic and human development indexes. Therefore, in the final analysis, a nation's success in terms of rapid development, GDP growth rate alone should not be considered as a measure. What is equally important is the development of its people in terms of their health, education outcomes, and their per capita income. Clearly, we have a long way to go. For more such videos, click on to www.thefederal.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Having come so far, we would request you to support our journalism and get access to the Federal's premium product by trying out our subscription offers. Thanks and bye.